The great problem to have is that Vision 2030 keeps adding to this list. The motorbike was my way to kind of get out, de-stress, clear my head, while sitting on the boat with FPV goggles, getting very seasick by, by
3 different vectors of motion.
Yes.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا بكم مرة ثانية في فيز بودكاست. قبل ما نبدأ بحلقة اليوم في نقطة حابين نوضحها، وهي إنه إحنا حاليا في البودكاست هذا بنستقبل خبرات وأشخاص من داخل الشركة، منه نعرف على أنفسنا كشركة وعلى المهارات اللي بنوفرها، ومنه نشارك تجارب أو دروس تعلمناها خلال مسيرتنا. لكن إن شاء الله مع الوقت وعلى المدى يعني في المستقبل بإذن الله حابين إن نستقبل خبرات وأشخاص من خارج إطار الشركة في ظل نفس المواضيع اللي نتكلم فيها. بالنسبة لحلقة اليوم، الحلقة بالكامل حتكون باللغة الإنجليزية، بس حيكون في النص أو السبتايتلز الموجودة أسفل الشاشة. نتمنى لكم مشاهدة ممتعة. Welcome to FITS podcast. My guest today is Dr. Luca Passon. Dr. Luca is a PhD alumnus of KAUST, that's King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. He is a co-founder and the CTO at FalconViz. He is also recognized in 2022 as Alumni Changemakers, showcasing significant contribution and impact in his field. Welcome, Dr. Luca.
Thank you, I'm excited to be here.
Before we go on into the topic of today, would you give us a little bit of your professional journey?
I was born in Italy and moved to England for my undergraduate, where I studied computer science. During my final year there, KAUST was gearing up. Hadn't been open yet. It was 2008, and they came to my university to do recruiting. At the same time, I started a job. I was in industry for a year, and when I got the job offer from KAUST, or the studying offer from KAUST to do my master's, the project was too exciting to pass on the opportunity.
Okay.
So I quit my job and joined on a high-performance computing master's here. The jewel of the crown was Shaheen, to be able to take advantage of the fastest supercomputer in any academic institution. So my master's was there. I got a chance to spend a summer working in IBM, and then once I completed that, I stayed on to do a PhD in earth science and engineering, using some of the work I did during my master's to simulate earthquakes and study how different parameters of the fault influence ground shaking.
What was it like to be part of the KAUST environment?
So as a founding student, we got a chance to really set up everything. So there was nothing here. We're talking about the atmosphere of how the students interacting with each other. We got to start the first graduate student council, all the clubs. You know, I like to do sports, so we were setting up football clubs, volleyball clubs, scuba diving clubs, and then at the same time we're really helping getting a lot of feedback on how we should structure and improve courses and classes and deal with professors on a one-to-one basis, which was kind of unheard of where I came from. We were classes of 100 plus students, and now we're maybe 10 or 12. So it was a really, really fantastic atmosphere to network and to build, let's say, the foundations of what KAUST was going to be over the next 10 years.
How would you say that this environment is now different than the environment that you had when you first came into KAUST?
Yes, so since 2009, both KAUST and the kingdom in general has had dramatic changes. KAUST has grown up. When we arrived, everything was very fluid, very dynamic, lots of opportunities, and now things are a bit more complicated in a sense. The opportunities are still there, but to reach them there is, let's say, more paperwork, there is a bit more bureaucracy to go through, which is normal for an institution that's gone from having 320 students to a few thousand. The community has exploded. We are several thousands of people, I think close to 10.
Let's talk about FalconViz. Where does the name come from?
Okay, so when we first started the company, well, at the time we were not even sure if we were going to start a company. We were just trying to figure out how we were going to get funding into this entity that we weren't sure. It was just a research project back then. We didn't know what was ahead of us. So the co-founders, myself, Mohammed Shalabi, or Dr. Mohammed Shalabi and Dr. Neil Smith, we were trying to figure out what kind of name we could put together using some of our initials or surnames or names or something. And then we tried to think what characteristics the company should have. And we thought about precision and vision. And the KAUST supercomputer was called Shaheen after the Saudi Pilgrim Falcon was fast. And so we wanted to kind of imitate or go along those lines. And so we went through a few different animal names. And we had drones and we were flying high and capturing images, and the Falcon just fit perfectly. And we added visualization because that's what we were doing. We were taking data and visualizing it in innovative ways.
And I guess it works nowadays since we're doing asset digitization, so we're visualizing reality.
Yes, still we're capturing data at great resolution as fast as we can, and visualizing it. That's
very valid. So you have, mashallah, tabarakallah, a very extensive professional journey. You've held titles like CTO, acting CEO, co-founder, drone pilot. So what are some lessons that you've learned through all of these experiences that you carry with you today?
Each one has its own challenges and has its own beauty. I think maybe today still my favorite is the drone pilot one. It's just, for me, that's where it started. So my role when we first started the company was to build the drones, fly the drones, and solve, let's say, field problems. And for me, that's still like kind of the most exciting part, to go out and play with these toys and have fun, be in the field, capture data, and solve those kind of problems. So the challenges associated with that is really under pressure, in the moment, problem solving with the tools that you have, sometimes away from mobile phone coverage, and you just need to figure out how to make this thing work when things go wrong. And back then, when we started in 2013, 12, things used to go wrong a lot of the time. It's not like today that you just buy a drone off the shelf from DJI and you go out and you fly it.
There's a lot of elbow grease that goes
Exactly. So you needed to know a little bit about electronics, about programming and soldering and building. And so it had this kind of like very mechanical, touchy feel that I really, really enjoyed.
Okay.
Of course, as you move, let's say, a little bit further away from the field and into a more conventional office job, you still have to make decisions under pressure, and it's tough and it's challenging. But you're not under the sun. You are in an office space. You can think a minute. You can bring your favorite drink or something, and it's not go. But the decisions have different implications. The kind of decisions we make today have an effect on all our employees. How do we weigh the benefits of maybe investing in certain courses or certain development path for a group of employees, and what is the intangible return of investment? So the kind of decisions you're making have more kind of esoteric feel to them. Sometimes you cannot measure the impact of your decisions, and this is completely different from what we said earlier, where we're touching and we're seeing and we're programming and it's numbers. And the other side is not numbers, it's people, and each person is different, and that has its own beauty and challenges associated with it. So although the foundation is the same, difficult decisions under pressure, the way you bring in all the different factors and how you weigh them is a completely different crunching machine. And it took me a lot of effort to learn that, because my background was numbers and computers, where 2 + 2 always equals 4, and with people that's not always the case. So I had to learn that, and now I'm finally bringing all these lessons along with me. And of course I have fantastic colleagues that have shaped me and helped me understand and put all these things together.
I think that was beautifully worded, honestly. So in line of what you just said, what motivates you to pursue newer heights in your career?
So I think I'm blessed at this moment of my career. As you mentioned, I am a co-founder and I'm at the head of the company that I co-founded, which is something fantastic. Having said that, you mentioned something very good, where you go next. And next is, it's the next challenge of growing the company. It's the next challenge of going. Last year, for example, we went from around 20 employees to 50. And this brought in whole set of new challenges from office space, from housing, and dealing with being able to satisfy everybody in their own unique way and making sure that everybody remains productive. And I'm sure when we go from 50 employees to 100 employees, this again is going to be another batch of problems. It's have a small kid, and as I go through developmental stages, it's a whole new set of problems.
Yeah.
It's once you think you got the hang of it, again we start from the beginning with new challenges. And I think bringing some of this, being able to adapt and evolve and analyze and move on and understand that, okay, you did something and it was great, but now you have to let go of this great and you have to kind of try to grab a new great and a new normal and new set of rules to play with. That's kind of very challenging for me, again, that comes from a very numerical and engineering background, and trying to be a leader of an organization made up of humans, each with their own individual needs and ambition.
I remember, also in light of what you just said, I remember one time we were discussing something about the company, and we were like, well, we have these problems, but they're good problems to have. So how did you come to have this kind of constructive way of looking at things? Was it something that you just naturally had, or was it something that came as a byproduct of your background, like I said, in a technical, numerical background?
I think my favorite quote was from one of our advisors. He said, where there is hardship, there is opportunity. And when you have these hardships, there's the opportunity to grow, there's the opportunity to learn. We had a couple of years ago a very difficult period in the company on let's say, putting some pieces together to start projects. And we kind of came up with a whole new way to earn money for the company. You were aware we started our academy. So we faced a hardship, and the academy was not my idea, but from the management we decided to invest our energy and effort into this new revenue stream, and which we wouldn't have had the opportunity to even think about had we not had this other hardship. And as you grow older, you get into many of these experiences, and there's always two ways to look at them. The glass is half full or half empty. And if you think of it of half full, first of all, you approach the problem with a much better mindset. And this just came from experience. It's across life. There's you either see it as an opportunity of growth, or as a new revenue stream, or as something fun, a challenge. And it's always fun to get on top of a challenge and scream victory, right?
Yeah, that's what makes us engineers.
Yes, exactly. We don't do it because it's easy, right?
Exactly, yeah. You do it for the gratification of solving the issue.
The harder, the better.
Exactly. Yes. I want to circle back to something that you mentioned. You spoke about drones.
Yes.
So I know this is a little bit more of a hobby than, now it's something occupational. But my question is, did you ever think that you would utilize one of your hobbies or capitalize on one of your hobbies into a career, or was this something that came by coincidence?
To answer that question, honestly, it's a coincidence. Like, I still have to pinch myself that I'm in this very privileged position, because, as you mentioned, it was a hobby.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with my research, nothing to do with my PhD or master's. Back then, this wasn't even a job. Like, there was no drone operator. If you wanted to get aerial shots, you hired a helicopter. There was no drone photogrammetry.
Yeah.
And I actually remember I wanted to put a camera in the sky, and my first attempt was with a kite. So I hooked one of my GoPros, a Hero 2, onto a coat hanger and taped it to my kite and flew it up. So this is how I got my first photo from the sky. And then I thought, no, surely there must be something better than this. I mean, I still got our barbecue at the beach photograph, but you know, this couldn't be it. To be honest, there wasn't that much better. At the time, model aviation, it was, you know, a bunch of guys usually putting together gas-powered planes. Electric multi-rotors wasn't really even a thing back then. And then when those came in, the market just kind of accelerated because they were much easier to build, extremely much easier to maintain. And so I kind of got into that hobby just as the first quads and flight controllers started kind of coming into the market. And so, but for me, that was fun. It's what I did in the weekends and in the afternoon, a little bit of programming, a little bit of building, soldering. And then by chance, I met Professor Neil Smith, or Dr. Neil Smith, who had just joined KAUST, coming from California. And he was doing photogrammetry in archaeological sites. And I had kind of tinkered with creating 3D models with the images I was creating from the cameras, but that was not my expertise. And again, back then we didn't have things like Pix4D and Metashape and these things that now we kind of almost take for granted. Back then you had to download some code and put some libraries together and try to get it to work. And that was Neil's expertise. And so we kind of hit it off together. And I took the images with the drone and he processed them, and we got this incredible model of the mosque. And we thought, okay, this is interesting research experimentation. This is fun. I get to fly my drones, and KAUST bought me a big drone because Neil had some budget to do research. And then by chance, the vice mayor of Jeddah walked in, saw our 3D model on these huge 3D screens at KAUST, and thought, oh, this is fantastic. I would like to also have this done for Al-Balad, to have it recognized as a UNESCO site, because again, back then Al-Balad was in a different state from what it is today. There's tremendous work has been done. But back then you couldn't even send somebody in to access the sites. They were so difficult to enter. Some of the buildings were potentially collapsing. So we did it by drone, and this was completely innovative back then. And so we had our first clients before we even knew, and this is why I said, you know, FalconViz, kind of the name had to come quite quickly and out of the blue, because we were in this very, again, privileged position to have a client come to our house and not us going out looking for one.
Yeah, and that's, this may be a little bit of a side note, but I feel like that's part of the beauty to KAUST, that it's truly like a house of wisdom, because it expedites these nodes of shared experiences. I was talking to one of my friends in KAU, and he was telling me, like, is KAUST really different? I told him, like, the thing that makes KAUST powerful is that these two dots that would take 15 to 20 different nodes to connect, in KAUST it happens in 2. And that is highly evident in the way FalconViz comes around. So yeah, no, definitely.
KAUST is definitely a catalyst.
Yeah.
So if you have a good idea, KAUST can accelerate it.
Absolutely.
And actually, we're trying to be catalysts for other startups here within KAUST. Whenever we can bring them on projects, because we have some really, really cool startups just around us in AI, especially. And so we're trying to bring them on with us and kind of pay it back and trying to do these kind of things and be that catalyst sometimes together with KAUST.
This is a good point to ask if there are any projects that you're currently excited about. Anything without an NDA.
Yeah, right. This is the difficult thing. Like, we're not allowed to put out the craziest, most fun projects. But do you want it current or do you want it historical?
Whichever one you found interesting.
So I think I'll go way back in time for a historical project we did in Beirut. We were tasked to scan the Rouche in front of Beirut's front on the water. So it's a beautiful rock formation, but as mentioned, it's out on the water. So we had to hire a small boat, and we had myself and an assistant, because back then we were flying the drone with 2 pilots, on a tiny little boat in the waves, flying the drone.
Wait, I'm sorry, 2 pilots?
2 pilots, one flew the drone and the other one flew the camera, because we needed to turn the camera towards the rock formation, but we had to pass between the rock formation.
Okay.
And back then GPS was not that good. We used to get like 10 satellites on a good day compared to the 27 we get today. So I was just in charge of making sure the drone doesn't hit anything, while sitting on the boat with FPV goggles, getting very seasick by
3 different vectors of motion.
Yes, 2 minutes in the mission, I was already like not having a good day. And then the other, we used to call him camera operator, was responsible for turning the camera and making sure we would get all the facade. There is an added difficulty to this, so the battery would last only 8 or 9 minutes in those days. And we would have to land the drone back on land beyond our line of sight, because we found a flat area. So there was somebody on the cliff giving signals and telling us, yes, you're here, or go back, because we couldn't see the drone, and no signal, no nothing. And so this was one of the most challenging projects we did at the beginning, very successful. We got all the data that we could have dreamt of. And we did simulations of erosion and all kinds of fun things with Beirut University. I think this was, at the time, we thought it was going to be impossible, and we put like bottles on the arms of the drone in case it fell in the water. We could fish it out. Like, it was just technically extremely difficult to do back then. Lots of little challenges we had to overcome, but it was quite fun.
Would you say that the majority of these challenges have now subsided, or do you think that there are still some of these challenges that we face in our day-to-day work right now?
No, I think today you could get a drone like a Skydio, you would draw a box around them, hit go, and enjoy the view from one of the beautiful restaurants there. It's just changed so much. Drones now, you can get 35 minutes easily out of the battery, much higher resolution. You don't have to wear these goggles. You would get signal. Like, it's good. The game has changed completely. Like, the barrier to entry has gone down dramatically over the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
We used to build the drones with soldering and programming the flight controller, tuning it to make sure it flew properly. Now with $3,000-4,000, you get something very capable, off the shelf, kilometers of range, 30-minute battery time. Like, you wouldn't have half the problems we had back then.
Interesting. Well, you did touch on your extensive experience building drones, mashallah. Is there anything else that you, I don't know if it's the correct word, but invented or innovated on?
I think through our, let's say, very diverse projects that we had at FalconViz, we got a chance to, as we mentioned earlier, really have fun and solve the difficult problems. Maybe there's 2 or 3 things we could talk about. The first one was back in a time where we used to fly M600s. There was no way to create a mission programmatically using, let's say, code and then upload it to the drone to fly. And we needed this for facade inspection. So we wrote our own iOS mission uploader for the M600, which had a lot of fun features. One of probably the most important ones was that back then you couldn't fly absolute altitude. You could only fly relative altitude from takeoff position. And this meant it was really difficult to pre-program missions and then just send the people out in the field where there was no signal, no nothing, and run the missions. So one of the cool features that our app had was that you could define your takeoff altitude, and it would automatically adjust all the mission before uploading it to do essentially terrain following based on your home altitude. So this was one of our breakthroughs early in the days. Like we were considering this like an incredible feature. You know, like we would have absolute altitude terrain following on an M600. So this was, you know, let's say software-wise for us, gave us like an advantage for a couple of years until everything else caught up. More recently, I think we had a lot of fun scanning some historical wells. I don't think maybe we can say for who, but let's say they were around 30 meters deep, ranging between 2.5 to 5 meters in diameter. And we looked at many different options. We looked at flying a drone down there, but the dust would just completely ruin the images. And plus, being able to get 360 captures of all the sides of the well would be almost impossible to guarantee. We looked at LiDAR, dropping down the LiDAR system with cameras and things, but the closeness of the wells meant that any small misalignments between the LiDAR and the camera in the computation of the position would ruin the colorization. And plus, it would be very difficult to get a textured mesh out of it, which was very important for the client. So in the end, we designed this, I call it the disco ball, because it has, I think we measured the equivalent of the light emission of 50 iPhone flashes.
Wow.
To fully illuminate these wells, and then a constellation of 6 GoPro cameras to capture everything. And we got some pretty special results out of that one. I was very happy to have designed this system and 3D printed it, assembled it with the help also of some of the other team members, and Nizar especially helped me a lot with the soldering because there was just a lot of it. Many lights to make sure we didn't have any hotspots. It was all illuminated very uniformly. It was a very fun that's innovation to bring to the field, because we couldn't find anything. We searched and there was just nothing that could fit small wells and big wells and produce all the data that we needed to satisfy the client. And we built it, and we're the only ones that have it.
So our job by nature takes us to a lot of places around the kingdom. What are some of your favorite places that you've visited around Saudi Arabia?
Wow, there's many. Actually, Saudi is a very beautiful and extremely diverse country. There's a lot of areas people don't expect to see here. Like in the south, there's a lot of green in the Abha region. And we were there for a project, again, let's not mention for who, but we came out of a tunnel and there was a cow grazing and this beautiful green view, comparable to Switzerland. It was truly breathtaking, huge mountains, very nice weather, very enjoyable project. We stayed there for a couple of weeks. And then at the same time, there's very old places to visit, like in the areas of Alula, there's the old town. We did some very high resolution scanning over there, and there's a castle. So we scanned that old mud city. It was very fun, and Kasal Farid and Medain Saleh. Those areas are very unique and interesting to visit in general. And for fun, I used to go scuba diving. So beautiful reefs here, very beautiful reefs in the Red Sea. Most of them untouched. You know, there's very few tourists here. So they are still very well kept. And at the same time, maybe we'll get to it, I love the desert, which I tend to explore on a motorbike. And again, breathtaking views, very beautiful places, which I hope to explore more and more. This is currently my fun for the weekends.
Okay. But yeah, no, I definitely agree, especially like for most city dwellers, like from big cities like Riyadh, Jeddah, and so on, we rarely ever realize how diverse the terrain and environments that Saudi Arabia has. Like people, especially like foreign friends that I have, when I send them pictures of like Tabuk where it's snowing, they're like, yeah, no way this is in Saudi. So yeah, it's very diverse, and this is one of like the pros and cons of our jobs is that it takes us around the country and shows us like a different side that you don't usually see, you rarely ever see. So yeah, no, I definitely agree.
And there's many touristic areas that most people don't know about. And through our work with the Minister of Culture, we get to visit a lot of these places, which we hope eventually they'll have sustainable tourism built around them, and have visitors enjoy them, because they are really nice places. And I come from Italy, Rome, so
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. We tend to have an eye for historical heritage. And so the Minister of Culture has been one of our long-standing clients, for which we have done a lot of work. And I'm very proud of this, I'll call it collaboration, because we are contributing to what we just said of documenting and creating an environment where tourists can visit, discover these areas, and enjoy it in a way that is responsible, and know that whatever it is that they're looking has been restored in a way that follows international guidelines for preservation of cultural heritage. And we're very proud to have made a contribution in this in the kingdom for the future. And it's a nice, very nice feeling to be able to give back to the country as a foreigner coming here.
In light of what you just said, how does our work at FalconViz coincide with Vision 2030?
Oh, this is one of my favorite topics when I discuss with the sales team. As you know, Vision 2030 is a very fluid and forever expanding project. And so it includes within it things like NEOM, Sindala, and Red Sea, and so on and so forth. And I keep telling the guys that I want to see FalconViz involved in 100% of the projects. And the great problem to have is that Vision 2030 keeps adding to this list. So the guys can never reach 100%. They can never catch up. And this is one of the best way to set a goal, one that is kind of not attainable, and you have to keep going, and you have to keep
Constantly
pushing.
expanding.
Yes, but they're keeping the percentage pretty good, because it takes time to get selected. Maybe we're talking a few months. So for each new project that gets added, we're adding one from our side, and it's very it's a sense of prideness that a lot of the Vision 2030 projects already use FalconViz data to manage or to build, to design, and to see it come to life. Sindala Island, I think, is about to be handed over, or it's considered completed. And we did a lot of work during the construction phase for monitoring and ensuring that it stays on track. So it's a very rewarding job to see impact on these huge mega projects that are not only important in Saudi, but they are setting some new benchmarks for worldwide, or what can be achieved worldwide in the construction industry.
Even for me as a Saudi individual, it's honestly, I keep telling my family, this is one of my favorite parts about this job, is that, for example, right now, currently, we have a project in Al Balad, and it's so wonderful to, explore, my hometown, like the heart of my hometown, and B, to constantly see our work, like, be featured, whether it's in Jeddah, whether it's somewhere else. Like every time we go to a newer location and we see our work being implemented like a year or two after, it's gratifying to know that, all of the work that you're doing is building towards something greater, towards a cause that supports the country as a whole. So yeah, no, even for me as an employee, it's like, this is more than just simply operating the surveying part. You're seeing the effects of your work in real life.
Noticeable impact.
Exactly. So you spoke about how drones went from being a hobby to being an occupation. So would you say that there is another hobby that a new passion that took its place?
Yeah, so drones were really multi-year passion that I had, explored all kinds of things with it, as mentioned, programming and building and racing even drones. So that left quite a big gap previously in my spare time, which I reallocated towards something new, which was motorbiking, with the goal of exploring the deserts and off-roading, because Saudi has the unique, almost unique or very rare feature that you can off-road wherever you want. There's no rules against it. So the motorbike was my way to kind of get out, de-stress, clear my head, because when you're driving off-road, that's all you think about, whatever is in front of you. And that, with my constant need to do better and pursue challenges and better myself, kind of got myself into cross-country rally racing, with the goal to eventually participate in Dakar, which is held here in Saudi every year in January. And towards that goal, I have competed in a few races here in Saudi, in Morocco. Recently, I was a finisher of Rally du Maroc. And so the question is, how does this feed into your day-to-day life, right? Besides the extreme physical fitness that you need to have for these kind of events. And I think the way I look at it, and again, I'm going to quote this, is that once you're exposed to a situation like a cross-country rally, you are kind of thrown in the middle of nowhere again to your own devices, trying to overcome all kinds of challenges, whether it's mechanical with the motorbike, whether it is pushing yourself to the limit, which makes everything else seem like an easy problem to solve. You know, like it just puts perspective. And this is a game that your brain plays with you, right? If all you're used to is your comfort zone, it kind of makes big problems out of small things. But when you have lived something like this, where you've put yourself to the absolute limit, everything else seems easy. Yeah, we can fix that. Yes, I'm in my air-conditioned office. We'll find a solution. And this is how it built resilience. It built positivity, because again, if you cannot live in a positive way these experiences, you're gonna finish in a bad way pretty quickly. So it just builds that mental stability, that self-knowledge that you're gonna push through and you're gonna make it, and everything's gonna be okay, and you're gonna find a solution. And this comes across in work, in life, in family, and everything. It just puts perspective.
As a newly father, what would you say to people who want to instill the same sense of problem solving and the same sense of perspective of innovation and switching perspectives on matters? What would you say to people who are trying to instill this in the next generation, whether it's children, siblings, nieces?
Yeah. So I think, as mentioned, one of the key components is resilience, is being able to rely on your own devices and build this belief that you are strong, that you can do it. It's very hard in the house when your kid has a problem to let them figure it out, to let them cry for a bit and try again in a minute. It's much easier to just put the toy back together and fix it for them, right? Like no drama, no nothing. And this kind of steals opportunities for the kid to learn patience, to figure things out, and to have belief in himself. So my son is only 3 years old. So at the moment, this is being able to do things by himself is like the most important thing in his life. And small things here and there to build his self-confidence. This, I think, at this stage is the most important thing. Later, it will come also being able to ask help when it's needed. This is something that many people struggle with later. So there is a happy medium where you need to know where, for example, my skills end, or Pablo's skills, my son, end, and where he actually needs help. If his bicycle is stuck under a pile of other 2 or 3 bicycles and his scooter, there's no way he's going to get it out of there. Like, they're just too heavy for him. But if he's just like a little bit stuck under something else, I just got to let him do it, right? Like, he'll build his confidence and he will know what he can do and cannot do. And that's, for me, very challenging at the moment to know where his limits are. And to know where is the line where I can step in and show him and try to walk him through it. And this throughout, you know, as a kid grows, knowing where that line is, I think it's one of the many challenges of empowering, but at the same time guiding and showing the way.
Do you think this also reflects on employment as well? Because like for, let's say, a newly employed person, whether it's FalconViz or anywhere else, you don't want it to be a situation where it's like, I must solve all of your problems for you to the point you become a nuisance. And at the same time, we don't want it to be where it's like, they're so self-sufficient to the point they're not willing to ask for help.
Yeah, it's like everything, the balance is the best, right? So you have to have a support structure around the employee, but you also want the employee to be with others and communicate, and so that, you know, when he's on vacation, there's other people that can solve the problem.
Transfer of knowledge, like you said.
Yes, exactly. So when the company first started growing, for me it was very difficult to let go of some of the things that I was doing, fixing the drones or flying the drones. Or I remember when we first hired the first batch of employees, I was in a similar situation. I would be on the controller, and like they will be there in case I fainted or there was an emergency, right? Like, but I'm on the drone, nobody's gonna touch this, it's expensive, we cannot break it, and I am the only one that knows how to fly it. And that was it, right? And this kind of taught me, in the other way around, like I learned, no, like, how is this person ever going to learn if I don't give them a chance, right? Like, how is a kid going to learn to ride on a bicycle if you hold it all the time, right? He's going to fall, and that's okay. And it's an important part of learning, and you know, work and life sometimes have these parallels. So letting go was actually a difficult step for me. But now that I'm surrounded super capable people, you know, my dream was to build a company where I feel like I'm the worst employee, in the sense that I've hired somebody who's better than me at flying drones. I hired somebody that's better than me at programming. I hired somebody that's better than me at running the business, you know, doing business development. And so, like, for many, that's actually difficult, you know, like, this is your company, you want to be everybody's idol, but that doesn't work.
You want to stay on the pedestal.
So the way I do that is I beat everybody at football. You know, this is how I make sure.
Except me. Except me. I put up a fight.
So no, jokes aside, like I think for many it's difficult to hire employees that they deem are better than them. And for me, that's my dream, to go into an interview and say, oh wow, this guy is gonna come in and like do everything that I can do 10 times better. And by doing that, you're going to be the worst employee of the company. And I hope that's the kind of company I'm building.
That is a very reverse way to look at ambition, but it's constructive. So there's a quote, I forgot by who, some writer, where it's like, if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room.
Exactly.
So it's like, within the same line.
So I want to be able to learn from my employees also, and my colleagues. I consider everybody in this company has equal rights to say something when it's wrong, when it can be improved. Like we have a very flat style of management. Like kind of management takes the responsibility, but many times the decision is not really taken by the management. It's a suggestion that comes across from all the sides. And I think the fact that we still have some employees that were hired 10 years ago, it's a testament to, I think, a pretty healthy culture of this kind, right? So we try to have an excellence, performance-oriented culture where we want to hire the best that we can and share the knowledge.
Well, Dr. Luca, it's been a very fun and fruitful conversation thus far. But do you have any final remarks for anyone who's aspiring to become an innovator or a change maker, whether it's in the field of asset digitizations or otherwise?
I think the secret for us to have reached where we have reached today is a good team. You know, there's so many aspects to running a business that you cannot even begin to think to be able to do it by yourself. I was very lucky in the beginning. I met with Dr. Shalabi and Dr. Neil, and together the three of us were able to plant a seed. And as more team members joined, you know, we were able together to bring our expertise. So I think one of the most important things is to put yourselves into situations where you can connect with like-minded people. And I think this is one of the most important things for a university. The education, yes, is great, but the network that you build, it's really important. And it's something that a lot of people kind of go through university and forget how important those connections are, and to keep them and to make sure you leverage them and maximize the potential that you have together. I think this is my biggest advice, to build a great team of people that have similar goals and complement each other.
All right, wonderfully said, honestly. That would be it for today. It's been very fun talking to you. Thank you very much for being here today. And for our dear viewers, thank you for tuning in. If you liked this video, share it with your coworkers, share it with your loved ones if you thought this was beneficial. And thank you very much for listening.